I gobble up every single Deltarune theory that I can possibly get my hands on, and whenever a new Deltarune chapter comes out, people start looking for clues. They'll dig through unused assets, analyze every line of dialogue, and make connections wherever possible, even turning to outside media that may or may not actually have anything to do with Deltarune. It's super cool that the Japanese kids book Wachi Field might have inspired Friend, but that's so tangential and it is driving me insane that basically nobody in the theory community seems to be talking about a game that Toby Fox has openly cited as an inspiration for his game design. Huh. Kinda sounds like garbage noise. This is Moon Remix RPG Adventure, an RPG where you don't have to hurt anyone. Sound familiar? Released in 1997 for the PlayStation, Moon was created by the Japanese studio Lovedelic, whose employees would later go on to create other cult classic games like Chibi Robo and Captain Rainbow. The protagonist of Moon is a kid that's playing his favorite old school JRPG, but he ends up getting sucked into it and wakes up in a blind old lady's house as an invisible person who the lady mistakes for her grandson that went missing, Takun. However, we find out that the JRPG's hero very much exists in this world as a separate entity, and he is a complete asshole. Sure, it's common practice for the main character of an RPG to burst into people's houses, steal their shit, and slaughter all of the local wildlife to level up, but realistically, it would be pretty awful to deal with a guy like that when you're just a regular inhabitant of that world. But it doesn't matter. The hero of Moon is destined to fight the big evil dragon, so he's gotta do what he's gotta do. We as the kid that got isekai'd away have to go around to all the corpses that the hero left scattered around and bring the creatures back to life. And we also have to generally put the world back together as it's actively being put in danger by the hero and help solve the NPC's problems, gaining love in the process. And we're being guided in our dreams by a sort of moon queen that's done up in this claymation style. In fact, all of the creatures that you have to restore are done in claymation as well, which really gives off this dissonant vibe. But also, the catch graphic is super striking, and I think that it inspired Petscop. Dude, when Tenna first showed up in chapter 3, alarm bells were going off in my head, because to me, he seems very clearly inspired by Moon, specifically in his speaking sound effects and how his unique graphic style seems reminiscent of the claymation.
Can make cars. Steam's coming around. We're gonna fix that.
It's been out of ambition.
Now, I'm probably linking complete coincidences here, but I mean, hey, making huge assumptions and leaps of logic over minor details kind of goes with the territory of being this theory pill. I mean, I was a member of game theory back in the day, so some of that totally rubbed off on me. This is one of those games where all the NPCs are on a schedule, going about their lives day to day, and you need to catch them when they're available. Like all of Lovedelic's games, Moon is absurdly wacky and has great characters out there, like the super out-of-place American family and the drunken baker that's hiding a secret that's so insane that I guarantee you will never see it coming. I absolutely cannot spoil it. And man, the relationship that this game has with music is so good, and the whole robot disco world still gives me an uncanny liminal feeling. But okay, look, as much as I want to go back to my old game reviewer roots and just give a full-on breakdown of the game, this video is ultimately about Deltarune, so I'm going to start spoiling the shit out of it. Honestly though, if you like Undertale and Deltarune, then you absolutely owe it to yourself to go pick up Moon. It's pretty short and it's on sale all the time. But okay, let's talk spoilers. Throughout the game, you find these things called rum-roms, which reveal details about the true nature of the world. But remember the old lady from earlier and her missing grandson? Where did he go? Well, in order to fight the dragon, the king's minister followed a prophecy, firing an arrow into the sky, which landed on Takun, which chooses him by fate to be put inside of a cursed suit of armor that gave him immense power, but turned him into a mindless killing machine. Obviously, this is the hero. Isn't that interesting? Very, very interesting how much that parallels Chris? As we know, the world of Moon is actually the RPG that we see at the beginning of the game, but from the hero's perspective. That powerful armor that he found in the lady's house, yeah dude, that was underwear. He even attacks a little girl's pet, thinking that it's a killer monster. However, after being bound to the cursed armor, Takun is no longer his own person. He's being piloted by an outside source as the hero. It's the protagonist because he's the one playing that actual game. Considering that Deltarune is all about what it's like for a video game character to lose all sense of self and agency by being controlled by us, the player, I think that's worth digging into. The storytelling of how Takun transformed into the hero isn't explicitly stated, and you have to go out of your way to discover these details. Like how if you show the minister the arrow or talk to him about Takun's grandmother, he gets super cagey about the whole thing. And speaking of cagey, what do you mean that the representation of the player is locked inside of a birdcage? That is insane. But okay, let's move on to the end of the game. You end up going to the moon, which is home to the big evil dragon, and we immediately see a massive pile of rum-rums, which details the literal code of the NPCs, their behavior, their routine, their actions. It's all predetermined, and they're simply, well, characters in a video game. We also discover that like the queen and the dragon are two entities fused together. I don't know what that's about. If you know more about this game, please explain it down there in the comments. The hero also comes to the moon and kills all of the creatures that we spent the entire goddamn game resurrecting, and then slays the dragon. And the rum-rum that he drops upon his death reveals that all of this was preordained and there is no way to escape their pre-programmed fate. Then the hero kills the protagonist and then dies himself. But at that point, the protagonist's mom in the real world says this:
"Stop playing that game and go to bed."
At which point, we are given a choice. We have the option to continue, and then the protagonist gets sucked back into the game, but that's it. It just lingers on this staticky TV for as long as you keep the game running. Or you can choose to listen to your mother and put the game down, but this actually manages to bypass the prophecy and open a portal to the real world, to which all of the NPCs go through and now live amongst the humans. And if you linger on the credits, the game will tell you to turn the damn game off and go touch grass. Okay, I know that this is my old gaming channel and I keep all of my comic stuff separate on Comic Drake, but I can't help myself here because there is actually some interesting comic philosophy that's fascinating and relevant. The legendary comic writer Grant Morrison is all about meta commentary, and they talk at length about how fiction truly does exist in the real world. Kind of, because we bring it to life simply by engaging with it. This page from Multiversity is huge because simply by reading the words, we hear the character's voice in our heads. This fictional character has an actual connection with our real body, and in some way, we have given him life. Comic books are pretty damn cool, and if you've never read one, then you really need to go and give them a shot. But okay, Deltarune. There's a lot of speculation that the meta-narrative of Deltarune is about the relationship between fiction and the emotional connections that we form with it. So the ending of Moon actually just transitioning into the real world could be taken as metaphorical. Like, it's pretty obvious the protagonist isn't physically falling into the game world, and it's instead a representation of how unhealthy escapism can be when we let it consume us. One of the characters is actually an enlightened shaman type, and he knows about the real world, asking if we really want to return to it. Cities full of gray rain, loud cars, and all the ugliness of it that's built on conflict. Now, it's worth noting that Moon actually has an unused ending, which some folks were able to find through data mining, and it's tragic, but it's also worth looking at to uncover more of what this game has to say. So in the unused ending, Takun is able to get out of the armor, and he's confronted with how many creatures that he's killed and is forced to atone by helping heal anyone that comes to him. The boy mutates over time and eventually becomes the Great Dragon, and then he'll soon be killed by his previous incarnation of himself and is locked in this endless loop. Interestingly enough though, an animation of Takun turning into the dragon is in the final game during a dream sequence, so I think that's still canon. There is some ambiguity in this ending, but I love the interpretation that's said here by JoJoTuber574. I think the idea of this was that it was going to be the true ending, where it's revealed that when a real person starts the game, they take over the boy against their will and use him as a tool to kill everything in their path without the boy knowing. When you get to the end and slay the final boss, kill the dragon, the credits roll for you. But for the boy, the curse is lifted and awakens confused, not knowing he was used to commit mass genocide, where he must take up the dragon's dogma to cure those he hurt. But then another player starts the game again, or you decide to replay it for old time's sake, which causes the powers of time to reverse once more, where the boy is once again overtaken by the player to kill the dragon, the final boss, who is actually the boy himself from another time, thus the cycle is infinite. Now, I've personally only played Undertale the one time, because even though I get that they're fictional characters, Flowey's request at the end of the True Pacifist route really struck a chord with me, and I refuse to rewind time and put all those characters that I've grown to love back where they started. So now I only get to experience the game again by forcing every single goddamn person in my life to play the game so that I can watch them. And let me make things clear, I normally hate watching other people play video games because I would rather spend that time just, you know, playing the games myself. But I digress. Am I saying that Moon is the secret key that holds all the answers to Deltarune? No, but I do think it's strange that we have spent years combing through every small piece of obscure Deltarune trivia while mostly ignoring one of the games that Toby Fox himself has pointed to as an inspiration. Maybe none of this means anything, and maybe the similarities between Moon and Deltarune start and end at a handful of shared themes. Or maybe Moon contains clues to where Deltarune is headed, and we have completely overlooked it because most of y'all have never played it. Here's a few thoughts that I have, and I'm hoping that it can start getting the much more advanced Deltarune theorists going. So, it's interesting that both Moon and Deltarune seem seem to be circling the exact same ideas. Characters that are trapped by fate, a separation between the player and the main character. A video game understanding that it's a video game and weaving its own code into the narrative, and ultimately being about the characters escaping from that very system of ones and zeros. But here's the takeaway that I really want you to think about. Although the final version of Moon technically has 2 endings, it kind of doesn't. Toby has been advertising that Deltarune only has one question mark ending, so there's a chance that it could play out as something similar. No matter what you do, the hero will slay the dragon and then kill the player. The option to either stop or continue comes after the quote-unquote ending of the game. So although there might only be one ending, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's only one outcome. Is that where Deltarune's going? Who knows? Anyway, at the time of this recording, Chapter 5 is right around the corner, and with it, there are going to be a whole slew of new theories. All I am asking is that you give Moon a shot and then consider what it has to say. If that helps spark some ideas, then I'm extremely happy to have contributed to this community that I love so dearly. So yeah, gaming isn't my job anymore, so I'm gonna go head back over to my main channel, Comic Drake, where I talk about comic books and my name is Drake. But you can still feel free to subscribe to this to get notified when I get inspired to make a video game video again in like 3 years, but I also think that it would be super funny if I hit 100,000 subscribers again and try to get YouTube to send me another silver play button. But yeah, bye.